Hello. Welcome to the Mother Days. I'm your host, Teresa Palmer.
And I am Sarah Wright Olsen. Hi, daisies.
Hi, Sarah. It's your birthday. Happy birthday, Sarah. Woo. Well, not quite today, but this is our 40th birthday episode for Sarah. Woo! Oh my gosh, girl, you made it. You've made it to 40.
I made it.
What does 40 feel like? What does that feel like? I'm only a few years behind you. I want to know. Give me all the things.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So 40, it's weird. I will say it's weird. When I turned 25, I had a full-on like crisis of life. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so old.
Wait, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes. I had this weird crisis and I was just like, what am I doing with my life? And like, I was in an amazing relationship, but work-wise, I was just like, I don't know, like our business is so up and down. And I was just like in this like funky way. And it was so funny because I just remember being like, is this what I'm doing? Like, I feel like I haven't found my full passion yet. And it's just funny because now looking back, I think just keep going. Like you're about to get there, right? You're about to figure out the things that like light you up. And I sort of like tapped into like little things along the way. Like I tried taking children's book writing classes or like, I was like doing all these little things that sort of led me to a place of like passions that I loved later on when I was a mom. So anyway, but I was talking to somebody the other day and they were like, well, look at your because they were asking me like, oh, I heard your birthday's coming up. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually turning 40. And they were like, what? And they go, wow, your 30s have been this time in which you created your whole life. Like, look at it. Like, look at everything that you sort of put together. Right. And I was like, wow, it was amazing because I got pregnant with Wyatt when I was 29 and I gave birth to him when I was 29 and then I turned 30 a month later. And so my motherhood journey really started at the beginning of my 30s and, and then I had babies and work and like all the things. So it's just been such a decade of growth and it's definitely not what I anticipated at all.
Do you still feel like, what age do you feel? I was asking someone this the other day.
I think I'm going to feel 29 to like forever. 32. Yeah, forever.
Same.
I don't know why that is. It's just like I'm in such a different place in my like health journey than I was in my like 20s and early 30s too, where I'm like doing so much to take care of myself and like really focusing and thinking about health, which is just so funny because everything that you read about like people in their 40s, like health is so important, like pay attention to your health. But you do get to this place where you're like, I really need to make sure I'm taking care of myself and like get checked out. And, so, so it's not what I expected to feel like at 40.
I remember thinking that 40 was so old when I was younger. Like when I was like 16, like a teenager, like the 40-year-old parents, I was like, oh my God, they are so ancient. Look at them. Like how boring must their lives be? And then it's wild to be sitting in that place now being like, wait, we're still fun and we got tons of friends and we adventure and we do like the fact that I had such a strange judgment on that age when I was a teenager.
It was a different time because for me, like I grew up with teenage parents, like very young, people. But I remember my mom and dad turned 40 like the year I turned 20, right?
What?
Yes. And so I remember thinking how they were old because I was 20 and my dad was like always telling me about how everything hurt, like, he was like, making so many like noises when he would get up from the floor. He'd be like, oh, my knees hurt or my back hurts or like whatever. And he'd like make jokes about how old he was. So I always thought about 40 being so old because of that. And then I'm like, no, it's your own, perception of it, right? So like as I've been inching closer towards it, it's been more and more exciting because I'm like, what does this decade have in store for our lives and our family?
Gosh.
And it's like,
how exciting.
It's a positive thing.
It's such a positive thing. And today we thought for this 40th celebration, we were going to do 40 for 40. So we've come up with a list of things. Guys, it might not be exactly 40, so please don't count. I mean, that would be very lame if you were counting all of them, please. We're just going to sort of free flow, but we've got this loose list of things we've learned, little tidbits, little bits of advice, like just things that are meaningful to us, all the stuff that we've learned over the past decade or so. So, did you want to jump in, Sarah? She was reading me some of them before and I was like, oh my God. Tears.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Yes. So I think I'll start with maybe one of my favorites. It's been so impactful in my life forever. But when I was younger, I think I was like a teenager, and my dad and I, sometimes we had trouble like communicating with each other. And so my dad would write me letters and he would slip them under my door. And then I would read them and I would write letters back to him. And it would always be about some like big issue, right? Or it felt really big at the time, like if it's going on at school or with a boyfriend or whatever it was. But my dad said something to me one time. I don't remember what the problem was, but he was like, the hardest thing to do and the right thing to do are usually the same thing. And he was like, so when you get to this crossroads in life, when you get to these places and you're like, what should I do here? Sometimes it feels really easy to like cheat out of something or like, not
stay in the comfort
I'm not going to
zone.
do that. I'm going to stay in this because it's easier. But usually like the harder decision is the one. And so I've used it every time that I've come to a place in life that's been like really intense. And I've been like, wait, okay, the hardest decision is that one.
Is the right one.
And that's the one. That's the right one. Mm-hmm.
I was just like, for randomly what popped into my head, even though this isn't very big, but still, I just like, you told that story on the podcast about how like challenging it was to go and like take that dude down who was being so inappropriate with you.
Yes.
And like, when you were telling that story, I remember I would be the cop-out version, which would be like, oh, that's too hard, even though my gut would be like, you've got to go say something. But you followed through. And even though that was challenging, like very uncomfortable for you, you did it and it was the right thing to do. So on like a smaller scale, I feel like you really are living by that. And that's so nice.
Okay, do you have one?
Yeah. So Mark has tattoos all over him, but they're not like those hardcore tattoos where it's like, crazy dark imagery and stuff. He's got like very sort of flowery images, spiritual. He's got like on the back of his arm, he says, have a great day. And then on the back of his neck, because he wanted in the line at like Starbucks for someone to read his tattoo and it says, have a great day. He's like, I really love people being able to see that. I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet.
That's
and thoughtful
really
of you.
Cute.
On the back of his neck, he has forgive everyone. And I remember being like, but what if it's so insane? Like, how can you actually forgive everyone? And he was like, but it's better for you to forgive everyone. If you can really like dig deep within yourself and find love, compassion, and forgiveness, it doesn't mean that experience hasn't shaped the person that you are and it hasn't like been a part of a growth for you. But it does mean that you are liberating yourself from sitting in any like really negative, uncomfortable, resentful feelings towards another person that will just have an erosive effect on you. He's like, so if you can get to a place of like, just like pouring out love and forgiveness. You don't have to be friends with that particular person who's hurt you or, rebuild bridges, but within yourself, if you can find a place of forgiveness, it's so freeing. So that was one I wanted to say, forgiveness, leaning into that as much as you can.
Oh, I love it. Okay. The next one is from Eric's dad. And it is behind every action is a human being. And I love that one. And Eric, he told the story about when he was like 5 years old and he is at the gym with his dad. His dad is a track and cross country coach at Augustana College. And he's with his dad at the gym and they go to the restroom and Eric's chewing gum and he walks in and he goes up to one of those like old school urinals. And he spits his gum out in the urinal. And his dad notices and he looks at the gum and then he looks at Eric and looks back at the gum and he's like, how do you think that gets out of there? And then Eric's like, I don't know. And he says, well, is it small enough to go down the holes? And he looks at the gum and he's like, no. And so he goes, well, how do you think that gets out of there? And he's like, I don't know. And so he looks at it again and he says, come with me. And so they go and they wash their hands and then they go out and they go down a hallway and then down a corridor and down some stairs and down towards the basement to this area that like Eric's never been before. And they walk up to this door and he knocks on the door and he's like, hey, Jose. This guy comes out and he's like, how's your, and he names the wife and talks about the wife a little bit. And he's like, oh, and how are your daughters? And like names the daughters, and asks them about their activities and like all the things and, knows what's going on in his life. And so they just catch up for a minute. And then he says, I've never had a chance to introduce you to my son. This is my son, Eric. And he's like, oh, hi, Eric, and then they chat a little bit more. And he's like, all right, well, we're just, making the rounds. So he walks him back up and, takes off. And then he stops with Eric and he looks at him and he says, that is the person that has to reach down and grab your gum and take it out of the urinal and throw it away. Behind every action is a human being. And then, of course, like Eric wanted to go back himself and clean his gum out of the urinal. And it's a story that stayed with him forever.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
He told that story to our children. And so we really talk about that a lot in our home. We talk about like, just when you leave a restaurant, like people leave stuff on the floor, like we clean it up and we wipe the table and like put our plates all together and like whatever it is, because, there's a human who is working there, who is going to come back and maybe it'll make them smile that it's like a little bit cleaner that time. Maybe that will give them like a little token of, yes.
I love that one. I just love that one. I love that one so much.
Good.
Because even like you can pull that into your household. You can pull that into like when your 100%. Kids leave stuff around. It's like, I say that to my kids as well. I've been saying it to Isaac recently, like, you've left that there knowing that there is someone else in this family who's going to take time out of doing things for their own self or, for instance, Isaac's obviously at school and, he's working very hard in grade 10. And I was like, it only takes 30 seconds to pick up that bowl, pick up that thing, take it over to the sink so that like we're not knocking on the door and trying to gather up all of your trash and put it away. Like it only takes 30 seconds just to be mindful of your actions.
Yes.
But the reason I love that one so much is because I'm obsessed. This was on my list actually to say everyone needs to watch the movie Triangle of Sadness. Everyone needs to watch it. It is about—
I haven't seen it.
It's about like class and privilege and beauty and hierarchy. And there's just so many amazing messages in this movie. And I knew my husband would love it. And I forced him to watch it because he was really tired. And I was like, you need to watch this movie. It'll change your life. Anyway, he watched it and he was like, hands down, the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God.
Which says a lot coming from Mark. But that film is all about this stuff.
Wow.
In a like heightened way. Like what would happen? Like what really happens? All these people, all this like, you know, it's like set on a yacht. And so like the wealthy people and what their actions do and who it affects. And just like status and privilege and wealth and all those things. So I've been so into this movie, and I think you hit the nail on the head. It's because everything you do has ripple effects and it can affect other people. So be mindful of your actions. Love that. Oh my God, I love it so much. Okay, so one that I learned, I guess, probably say 8 years ago, was it is never too late to change aspects of who you are or just evolve in some particular way that you are longing for. So for instance, you know, when we have these narratives about ourselves, like, oh, well, that's just not the mum that I am. I'm not the like birthday cake making, crafty mum. I'm not like the one that's super organized with my calendar and this and that. I'm just always like a little bit late. Like all those things, if you have the willingness to change your patterns and your way of being, you most certainly can at any age. I think, you know, they always say like, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. That's not true. You totally can. And I had this real like habit of being messy and like, they were just too, I never grew up in a household where there was a lot of value placed on cleanliness and tidiness. Well, I did at one household, but the household I was mainly at, it was like, whatever. We didn't put a lot of value on like keeping a tidy home. So I grew up and I just never had my house like lined up, straightened up, clean. It was just the way it was. And I was like, oh, woo, I'm just like a firecracker. I come in and, you know, everything gets untidy and then I'm usually running late. And then I was like, I actually want to change that about myself. I don't want that to be my narrative just because it wasn't a part of my life growing up. Like I can learn to make my own habits and my own flow of being. And also if I do that now, when I have children, which was I made that transition right as I was having Bodhi, then I'm setting a new sort of precedent in our household for our kids where like we all have responsibilities and we all keep a tidy house and we know that like mum really does like being on time. So it's like something that I do value. It took an effort to change that part of me because I think it probably didn't come very naturally, but I really worked on it. And I would say after a full year, I really switched this part of my being. And I now do value these things and they are a part of my life and I do get to model them for my children. And that makes me feel happy. So whatever it is, whatever it is in your life, people, if there's something about yourself where you're like Sarah, I do want to make a change and I do want to wake up early and I do want to do some self-care and I want to go on my Peloton or do my sauna and cold plunge. You can make those changes. It's never too late.
That makes me think of like how my daughter's kindergarten year, so that was last year, it felt really overwhelming how many emails we were getting. And they had like Monday letter home from like, you know, each class. And then it was like, you know, emails from all the teachers and emails from the school and like it was just like so much information. And so between that and then any kind of work and any kind of like, you know, stuff with the baby or whatever, it just felt like, woof, I felt like I was constantly trying to play catch up. And this year I was like, I don't want it to be like that. I need to figure out how to be more organized in my like Google Calendar and my email, like all of it. I need to figure out how to make that more concise. And so I spent time like putting everything into my calendar, syncing everything. Like I check it. It's part of my routine now that I check it every day. I read the letters from the teachers and I like implement anything I need to. I'm working so hard to stay ahead of it. Because I was always like, oh yeah, I'm really bad at a calendar. I'm really not great at email. Like I'm trying, but I'm not. But it was just really that like it wasn't my priority. And I actually feel better. It's not now that it's like the priority, but I've made it a priority in my life. And I feel better. Yes. And so I don't feel like I'm constantly behind and of course you still forget things. Like I still am like, oh, wait, what? I was supposed to do what? It's like, oh, I missed that one thing, but I'm not missing 10 things. I might miss like one thing.
So you made a shift at a later age in your life and it feels good.
This year. I so appreciate it. Appreciate that you bringing that one up because I think it's so great. And
yeah.
Okay. So next one. So this was me specific. So it really just depends on like where you're at in life. If you want to take this to heart or just hear it. And, but for me, it was like, definitely the last couple of years, I started to feel like I was missing this element of spiritual practice of like getting into some sort of a connection with, you guys have heard me talk about like connecting to the other side and like, feeling like I was more energetically connected to like, whatever you call it, the universe, God. Source. Yeah, exactly. So, for me, like getting deeper into more of a spiritual practice was something that actually started to open me up in a way. And it was nothing like profound. It was more so just like, starting with gratitude first, which is also on my list. So I'm knocking out 2 in 1 here, but gratitude first thing in the morning. And, with gratitude also comes along with like connecting to my team of light and to God and the universe and just being like, thank you for how you help me with my intuition, the gut feelings that I have and like, and for my family and for my health and like all of these things. And it's funny, I was sitting with Eric the other day and he was like, he was about to do the cold plunge and he was like, yeah, I have to distract myself. And I was like, have you ever tried like, instead of distracting yourself with a phone or like whatever, I was like, have you tried like going through your gratitude list? And he was like, I don't really know how to do, like, show me what you mean by that. And so I was sitting there and I was like, well, okay, I just sort of like go from the top of my brain, right? And I go, I'm so grateful that I woke up this morning and then I get to live this life. And then I'm surrounded by these people that I love. And I'm grateful to be in this home and it's cozy and it feels safe and warm and wonderful to me. And I am so grateful that I get to look outside at these beautiful plants and see like, bees buzzing and butterflies and that sunset. And, I get to drink coffee. And I was like, I really start at the top of my day and I go through just the little things in life and say like, these are really beautiful. And they like make me feel emotional because because I just feel like I see so much more when I'm grateful for what's around me. Right. And so he was like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I did not know that that's what you meant by that, but yes. So, that is part of my spiritual practice. It's like getting in tune with everything that's around me and just like expressing my gratitude for it by writing it down, by saying it in my head, by saying it out loud. But it's not something I ever did in my 20s. And in my 30s, it, is something that sort of came to me in the last couple of years.
Wow.
And it's
even you
great.
Just saying those things, I'm picturing like the sunset and I'm picturing how it feels to be outside. And I think we can all feel that when we're walking outside and we're passing trees and we're really taking life in. And it takes me back to when we witness babies in that most pure state and they are just absorbing everything without any preconceived ideas or judgment. They're just so present and just like wide open, like sponges, learning so much about the universe and the people around them. And to be able to tap into that, even for just 5 minutes a day, totally recharges you. So that is an amazing one. I love that. I love it. It's such a game changer.
Game changer.
Okay. It is okay to outgrow people and things.
Yes.
This one.
Major.
I feel this one.
Listen up, Buttercup.
So much. Listen up, people. Listen up.
This is big.
Goodness.
This is a big one. I don't think this is one that you can really tap into in younger years. I mean, if you can, wow, amazing. But it's like, I didn't get there when I was younger.
Same. Because you just, again, you're like sort of set in your ways. You have your little routines and you just like distracted by the busyness of life. And so you keep the same friends and but at a certain point, your life expands, right? Especially when you have kids and then you have more kids. And then like if your work is expanding as well. And suddenly your life is so busy and you have school drop-offs and you've got so many things to plan and kids and you want to meet the needs of everyone. And if you have those friends in your life that this was actually, Sarah had one as well on her list that I think this sort of ties into as well. If you have friends in your life where you leave feeling bad about yourself or ashamed or like looking at yourself in a way that feels like pretty negative, or you have that person that like comes to you and just does a big negative dump and you spend the entire hour with them, like trying to help them pull them out of the place. But then the next time you see them, it's the same thing. And there's been no like evolution or no shift or no self-reflection. And it just starts to like wear on you every time you're connecting with that person. They are the sorts of friendships and they are the sorts of people that it's okay to start realizing that maybe you've outgrown them. And I found that once I tapped into my spiritual journey, and it was so fine that other people in my life weren't in their own spiritual journey, but I just found that I started aligning better with people who also were trotting along that like-minded path. So I can now say at the age of almost 38, every single one of my friends, every single one of the people that I value and have in my inner circle, I love them so deeply. They love me so deeply. I leave feeling energized, like I can take on the world, that I feel so inspired. I love those people so much. And the other friends of mine over the years, I've spent less and less time with.
Yes.
And so that is why I wanted to bring this one up. It's okay to outgrow people. And it's also okay to outgrow things like possessions and things as well. So that was a huge one for me.
Huge. I love that so much. Like I look back over, the last decade and you think about like, even or 2 decades, you like think about people that you were, friends with in your early 20s, or like even how you came into relationships and friendships and how they sort of were in the dynamic, and then how it transitions when, you become a parent and then showing up for people and what that looks like. And like, I don't know, it's just like sort of some of the priorities start to come into a little bit more of alignment. And then you also think about like, what do I want my kids to be around? What do I want them to see? And what do I want my kids to see me? So like, who do I want my kids to see me surrounding myself with? And like, who am I talking about all the time? Is like, I love this person. This person lights me up. This person, makes me feel so good. And like, they're like family, and, and I want them to see those healthy relationships and like, spend time with the people who I can see are similar in terms of like, kindness and being there for other human beings and being thoughtful and like, really caring about your life and, friendship and everything. So anyway, I love that you said that, because I think it's so important, and it's still something that I work on, because I definitely tend to like, a lot of people sort of come in and out of my life, but it's hard sometimes to break up with friendships that are maybe not great for you. So
I'll add to that too, that once I've let go of a dynamic that's maybe not serving me, it actually opens me up to meeting like new incredible people. It's almost like I now have the space where I have this open energy and I'm just like in flow with my highest vibration, and someone will come along and I'm like, oh, like I've just made one of my new best friends, Carolina, I love you, has just come into my life. She's a mom of 4 and I'm around her and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was meant to be friends with this person. It's such an unbelievable friendship that I've made later in my life. And it's so nice to find someone so aligned and so in the same like rhythm. And it only came out of, you know, me moving away from other sort of friendships that were probably not as aligned. So that is a big one. And that's why I wanted to add that in here.
Love that. So, okay. So another one is, actually, this is just kind of like a cute thing that I'm going to throw in now because we've had a lot of really wonderful life lesson ones, but order pizza, eat it outside. In the back of a pickup, outside at a camping, outside on your front yard, whatever it is, eat it under the stars. There's something really amazing about just taking time to do that and to do something as cute and fun. And we do it a lot. We do it a lot. But it brings me so much joy. It doesn't have to be pizza.
Can we do that with you?
Yes.
Let's do it this Saturday. I know we're hanging out this Saturday. Let's do it this Saturday night. That's what we're doing. We're going to sit in the pickup. We're going to have our pizza.
It's the best. My favorite.
I'm going to add to that because I've done this with the Olsens before, and it was one of my favorite things. So growing up, we had drive-ins, which was so fun. And obviously, like in my mum's generation, they only had drive-ins really, where you'd like drive your car up and there'd be a big, for the younger people who are like, what's a drive-in? You'd just be a whole pile of cars watching a movie and you'd like tune into the radio station. And you'd listen through the speakers. It was so cool. Or if you were like me back in the day, my mum and I never had a car with a radio. So you would get the old janky speakers and you'd put them over the car window and you'd like listen to the movie that way. But Sarah and I and Eric and Mark, we did this when we were in Idaho. We went to this really cool drive-in. We watched a movie with the kids. We all sat in the pickup truck and I just had the best time. I drank wine. I was like eating my popcorn. The kids were so happy. You get all rugged up. That is such a nice thing to do. And in Adelaide, unfortunately, mainline drive-in, I just looked this up recently and I felt like deep grief about this, but it just closed down after so many years. And so in Adelaide, we no longer have any more drive-ins.
Someone has to come in and like buy it. Someone has to come in and do it.
Well, it's gone now. I thought about like, could I set one up on my property?
I know.
I don't have
actually,
that much
you
land.
can.
I know.
We're going to put the Amazon link in here. You can definitely like get one of those. You can get a blow. You know how they have like bouncy houses?
Yes.
They have they have a blow up movie screen.
Cinema. I know.
It's so cool.
I've got to do it. Oh my God. Anyway,
that's like great experience.
So
I mean,
fun.
Eric was telling me about something that he saw the other day about like experiences in life. And there's I don't know what the Japanese word for it is. I'm going to butcher the whole thing, but there's this thing about like doing something every month with your family. Like it could be like small things, but like doing an adventure. And then those things, if you like look over the years of your life, they add up to so many adventures, right? So it could be like camping or like taking like exactly what we're talking about, doing a little like, you know, dinner under the stars or, you know, going somewhere that you wouldn't normally go with your kids, like taking them to a lake and like jumping in. Your kids are like looking at you like, what? This is crazy.
My gosh, I love it.
These like sweet little adventures that you can do every single month, like really add up and become these memories that you have as a family. And you think about like some of the biggest memories that stand out to you in your own childhood or life. And it's usually like not really something massive that you did, it's not like, okay, this was like the trip that we took in the Disneyland cruise, or like, it's not something that you like spent all this money on, but it's like these really special core memory moments that you're like, oh yeah, I remember that day that we planted the tree that I got for Earth Day, and my new puppy was running around and he kept like taking the dirt and running away with it. Like whatever it was, it's like something cute that is like a memory that is so special, but it's like a little adventure that you do with your family. But anyway, I love that.
Gosh.
Love it so much.
I love it so much. So there's this saying that Mark has used a lot in his life. And if anyone listened to our podcast episodes with him, he's awesome. And he says it's the breakdown to breakthrough, which I think is such a lovely way to frame when you're navigating any form of adversity. Is like, all right, this is the breakdown for the breakthrough. And if you guys have been there, I mean, I definitely have. When you're at your lowest low and you get to a rock bottom, but then suddenly something shifts and you crack open and like the light comes in and you're like, whoa, and you start finding expansion. That is that saying, the breakdown to breakthrough. And it has rung so true to me so many times in my life, even recently when I was telling you how I was going through it, like sort of at a crossroads in my life and what do I want, what do I value, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, I was taken to that place and I've had such a beautiful breakthrough and I am feeling so happy and also reminding myself when I was in it, when you're in the place where it feels really hard, there is a breakthrough at the end of this. There's some sort of gift in the darkness. And there's that awesome song, Beauty in the Breakdown. I don't know if you remember that song. But it's, it's just one of those things in life that's so important to wrap your head around, but also offers a little bit of comfort when you're in a place that feels really hard. And you say that a lot, Sarah. You always say like, we can do hard things. We can do hard things. And it's so true.
It's so true. And it feels overpowering sometimes, right? But it's so good. And it's funny. I was just reading, I picked up the book Signs Again by Laura Lynn Jackson. And I'm reading this section. And of course, you guys know that I'm obsessed with her and that
she's going to be coming on the show.
And every time I pick up the book, things just happen, like just weird little things start popping out and happening again. And I'm reading this whole thing about her, this chapter about her dad, when her dad dies and this sort of new way that she learned and saw and communicated with him. And oh my gosh, the chapter just made me weep. It was so beautiful. But the reason I picked it up again is because, do you guys remember when I was talking about, the video of my dad, seeing that and how it was like so emotional,
hearing his voice.
Hearing his voice. And Eric was actually listening to the episode and then he was like, oh my gosh, like, can I see the video? Like, I didn't see it. And I was like, yeah, it's so funny. I didn't show it to him. I was running around with Wyatt and I was like, yeah, of course. And so as soon as I started playing it for Eric, for some reason, it hit me in a whole other way. And maybe it's because Eric's my person and I feel so safe to fall apart with him. But I immediately just started crying so hard. And then so much came up in that moment of just everything. We talk about grief. And that's the next one on my list is grief is, I'm going to quote Andrew Garfield, but grief
oh my God, that was amazing.
This is such a beautiful thing, but grief is unexpressed love. And I do definitely agree with that. There's, these times in life where you're going to lose people that you love. And if you can really sit in it and feel it and allow yourself those moments to grieve. And then when you're ready to move through them or, whatever, it's not it's just going to go away eventually. It's always going to come back up again. And if you look at it, the way that he said it was so perfect because I got it when he said it. Grief is unexpressed love. It's I really do think that it's all those times that I miss him, my dad, because there's just stuff that I wish that he was a part of. Love that I didn't get to give him, at this stage in my life. Things that I understand now that I didn't understand back then that I could talk to him about, or like whatever it is. So navigating grief, at any age is really, it's just a lot, and everybody handles it differently. But that's just like a beautiful way. Thank you, Andrew Garfield, of expressing that
a beautiful quote
and a way to think about it. That I think is another one on my list.
And on that, I want to tap into something else. And I'm sure you can speak to this, is that we don't have our parents forever. We don't have our grandparents forever. I lost my grandparents. I didn't meet two of my grandparents. And then my dear Nana died when I was 24. I was very, very close with her. And my pop died when I was 8. So I didn't have my grandparents around for that long. Luckily, I did have Nana around for a fair bit. But I still wish I asked her more questions. I still wish that I knew more about her life. And she would tell these wonderful stories, and I would listen to them like a sponge, but then I didn't write anything down. I didn't.
Yes.
I've got one video of her. And then I realized, like, I want to be able to gift my children with so much wisdom surrounding like who their grandparents were. And, my dad is getting bit older now. He's 75. And I kept getting ads for this thing. I sent this to you and Eric the other day, called Storyworth.
Oh, yes.
And I kept getting ads for it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to look into what this is. I have got to tell you guys, I spent the $99 on buying my dad's Storyworth, which basically it was his 75th birthday present from like me and my sisters. And we were like, all right, we're going to do this. And you basically buy them this program that sends them a question once a week. So on a Monday, he gets a question about his life that prompts him to write about his life.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So it's like, tell us about what was your relationship like with your mother when you were a child? I have learned so much about my dad in the last 4 weeks. It has been the most beautiful thing. And it has given him this like sense of purpose each week. He knows on a Monday he gets his question. And a lot of the time, my dad's very witty, very intellectual, like a sensational writer that I feel like it's cracked open this part of himself creatively that he's just been sort of going off of what the questions are, because the questions can be quite basic, like what was it like when you were in year 5, and tell us your most like memorable adventure when you're a kid. He's just gone off and sort of renamed his own chapters. He's like, all right, this chapter of the book would be called blah. And he's added photos, and there's just I didn't even know my dad was born premature. My dad was like 5 weeks premature, and that was 8 weeks premature. And that was a really big deal back then in 1948 when he was born, and all this stuff. And he told me this thing about how like he got 97% on every single thing, but his mother was focused on, like, my grandma was like, well, where did you lose the 3%? As opposed to being like, oh my gosh, what an amazing effort. And actually just even that aspect of like the dynamic with his mom has informed me about like the fabric of who my dad is and how my dad is in the world. And there's just, it's so worth it, guys. I beg everyone, like, spend the money on doing this. $99, and what I've gotten from this and what my dad has got out of this has been so special.
It's
so
such
I'm gonna now
cool idea.
Yes. And then what happens at the end of the year, it gets printed and made into a hardcover book. So it really is the story of their life.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's amazing.
It's amazing.
Okay,
So I
I'm
forwarded it to
definitely
Sarah
doing
and Eric, and I was like, "You guys need to do. You got to get it for Debbie." Yeah, like it's so cool. You have to do it.
Wow, that is so awesome. That would bring me so much joy. Actually, for Winter's birthday, I made her this book of pictures, and I put her like birth story at the beginning of it. And you know what's crazy is I like never thought about like a 3-year-old getting a book and actually sitting there and looking at every picture and talking about it. But just the kind of person that Winter is, she this is the book from Once Upon. So, you know, Once Upon app, and we did like a whole thing with them because we love them.
I've worked with them a lot. They're amazing.
Yeah, and they've sponsored some episodes, and like they're amazing. But like, all of that to say that this was so meaningful to Winter. She opened the book and she goes, "Oh my gosh, that's mommy. That's me as a baby." And then she would like turn a page and she'd be like, "That's, you know, grandma or Nana." And she would just look at it and she would laugh at some things. And I was like, what is happening? I had no idea of all the presents on the table at her birthday. She opened it and then just looked through every single page. And like Wyatt and Esme were like cracking up, and Eric and I were like tears in our eyes. We were like, what? This is so cute.
Oh my gosh. It's so sweet.
So yeah, that made me think of that. But that's just like such a beautiful, those kinds of gifts, I think, are something that you can like not only enjoy in life, but also pass down and look back upon. And like, it's just so great.
I love it. You know what kind of mom I am? I am the kind of mom who's like, I'm going to make baby books every single year for my children. And I've been saying that from about 2014. Do you know how many baby books I've made?
0, I'm guessing.
Well, up until now, 0. I had really good intentions.
I know. Same. No, me too. I like really started it with my first, and then I was like sort of shoving things into it from my second. And then this time around, I decided to do it totally different.
Well, thank God for our amazing partners at Once Upon, because they make it so easy to make a photo book. Like, it literally took me 10 minutes. They have this amazing app that you download. You can just get it from the App Store or Google Play. And you can just pull so many photos. And in fact, my favorite thing about it, it's got this feature where, let's say you select 150 photos, because you can actually have up to 594 photos. So let's say you pick 500 photos. It populates it for you. And then actually it has a tool where you can move the different photos around. It suggests different layouts. You can have a full page blown up, which is my favorite.
Yeah,
so it's a big featured page. And then you can choose the finish of your pages as well. So I like the matte finish. Which one did you pick?
Yeah, I chose the matte too. It's very minimalistic. Like, it's so beautiful. And the other cool thing is that you can collaborate. So like, I collaborated with Eric to get some of his photos. And so with the collaboration feature, you can, you know, both put in your pictures. And the other thing that I love is that I did one of the pages as like a writing page. And so I wrote like a sort of shortened version of her birth story at the beginning of my book that I made for Winter. And it was for her like first 3 years. And I kind of just dumped all the photos from the first 3 years, and because they were like already in the timeline that way.
Yes.
And then I wrote her story, and it was like the sweetest thing ever to be able to, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of did make her a baby book.
I know. And it's just like, for me, this is the practical way to make a baby book. Like, I think I had intentions of like cutting locks of hair and keeping little fingernails and like the umbilical cord stump and all the things. And I'm like, okay, I'm a busy working mum of 4. What is something that is just easy, straightforward? I could do it in 10 minutes, and boom, they have a book. They're reading their little stories. They've got the little pictures, and it's so meaningful.
So meaningful. So you guys can actually go on the Once Upon app and put in code TMD25 and get a discount and make your own book. And you can do it for birthdays, holidays, baby books, small moments, anything in your life that you're like, maybe I just have a folder of pictures from the last like 3 months and I just want to categorize them and put them on the shelf for the kids. It's an amazing way to do it. And it makes it really simple. And if you're in the US or Australia, they have shipping facilities in both places, which also makes it very convenient.
Yes, which I love so much because obviously I'm in Australia. So I know that my book is being shipped from Australia, which minimizes climate impact. So hello, another tick, tick, tick.
So you guys can make your book. You can make it on your phone, your tablet, your computer, which is very convenient. And just go to the Once Upon app, put in TMD25 for your discount. And we hope you love it.
Okay, so going into the unknown is how you expand what is known. Oh, I loved that. I haven't heard that before. I was trying to find something about like jumping into the abyss. Remember we had that.
Yes.
Remember we had that amazing girl on New Earth Mama, Emma.
Yes.
And she was like, you know, I'm butcher it as well, but it was like falling into the abyss only to find you land on a feather bed or something like that. Anyway,
yes, it totally was.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. I guess that's that similar notion to like break down to break through.
Yeah.
But going into the unknown is how you expand what is known. Well, I love that so much because for me, one of the most exciting things in life is learning. I love learning. I want to forever be learning. And I was talking to the kids about this the other day. You can learn something every single day from every interaction. You get into a conversation with someone and you're learning about that person. And it's like so much expansion that is just one of my favorite things in life. And this goes into my other one as well, which is like asking really good questions.
Yeah.
I will never forget being on the set of Warm Bodies and I met for the first time this actor, Dave Franco. He was playing my boyfriend, Perry, before I fell in love with the zombie played by Nicholas Hoult. Dave Franco, I still remember this, asks amazing questions. Like really thoughtful, interesting, left of center questions. And like he's learning so much about people. And I just thought that was such a cool, admirable
that's
skill.
amazing.
Asking good questions, like not the generic questions, the really interesting, like left of center questions to like find out more. But that goes into all the learning stuff that I love so much about life. In every interaction, in every experience, you could be learning and expanding. And the only way to find growth is to do things that take you a little bit out of the comfort zone. I think if you stay within your like comfort zone, I don't think it's as easy to expand. But if you're sort of pushing yourself and sort of looking outside of like the norm, then there are ways in which you can crack open and start learning even more, which is why I also love like going into like a conversation with someone who's might have like really different ideals from me or just have different life experiences, because you can sit, ask questions and you're learning and you're expanding. So that's another part of life that I just love so, so much.
I love it so much. I mean, I get like, it's funny. I hear you saying that about people asking questions. And sometimes I get like a little nervous when people are asking me like big questions about life. But I feel like a lot of times in life, and maybe it's just because I don't have a lot of surface conversations, but I feel like I get in really deep with people right away. So it's like like I'll, ask a question, how are you? And I really mean it like when I'm, talking to somebody, and then it's like, so much stuff starts coming out. And then, you're standing there outside of school drop off and you realize that you've just like gotten so deep into a conversation with somebody about something really vulnerable and personal. And like, I have many times had somebody go like, gosh, sorry that I got so into this, I don't know why I started talking so much about this. And I'm always like, no, it's totally fine. Like, don't say sorry. Like, it's good to have these conversations. And I think for people to, feel good about opening up and sharing and to know that is exactly what you're saying. It's only going to expand and help you to grow even more. So
do you have any more?
I do. I have another one. Jump into cold water. If it's the ocean, if it's a lake, if it's a creek, whatever it is, it's going to be freezing, but jump into it. And then when you get out of it, notice how amazing you feel, because your body actually releases all these really incrable, happy, hormones or adrenaline or endorphins. Yeah, all the things. I mean, I'm not a scientist, but if you just Google that.
You know the feeling. People know the feeling.
I know the feeling. But anyway, jump into a freezing cold ocean or lake or water. It's amazing. Feels so
I love it so much. I remember doing that at a school. We went like camping with the Sunshine Shack parents like years ago. And we had been trying for a baby for, I don't know, actually it wasn't that long. It was a poet that was a much quicker conception. And I remember like that morning I had like tested to see if I was pregnant and I was not pregnant. And I was like, and I was with everyone. I was like, oh man, like, okay. And I was like sitting at the beach feeling sorry for myself. And I am not really I do not go in the ocean at the beach that often, unless it's like very warm, like I'm in the Maldives or something. And then I was like, whatever. I grabbed this boogie board and I ran into the ocean, and everyone's like, wait, what? Mark's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm boogie boarding. Woo! And I went nuts. It was freezing cold. Like it was so cold. And I spent an hour in the water, like riding waves and feeling so exhilarated. And I was like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Like, why don't I do this more often?
Yeah.
And then later that night I tested again and there was a faint little second line.
Stop.
And I was like, what? And I felt like there was just something, I don't know what it was, but there was just something. Obviously, Poet was like, you're getting in that water, bum. You're getting in that water and you're going to stop sulking. And yeah, it was so cool. And I vividly remember that experience. And I have my friend Katie is like, the day you found out was the day that you were like in the ocean riding the waves with all the kids. And I was like, I know. It was so wild.
The ocean is a powerful force. I mean, I wrote this in my story about pregnancy loss, but, and you'll remember this, Tez, but for anybody that doesn't know that part, I mean, that weekend that I had like found out and it was just, it was so much and so overwhelming that I had a pregnancy loss. Eric is the one who was like, go out into the ocean and like, take some moments for yourself. And he was like, take the paddleboard, go out there. And I like took the paddleboard out and I was way, way out all by myself. And I jumped off the paddleboard into the open water, right?
Oh, wow.
And then got back on the paddleboard and just laid there. And I cried so hard and I cried everything out. And I was just like talking to that soul and talking to the universe and just like to my body. And I was just expressing like all of those big feelings. And it's really powerful. And I think, gosh, I really feel like it helped me to heal so much.
Oh my gosh.
We got halfway through, by the way.
Wow. Did we? Did we? I feel like I almost got all mine out. My last two I'm going to spit out. Become best friends with boundaries, and which we talk about all the time. It's very good to have boundaries, guys. So because then you're actually saying yes to yourself, which is a good thing.
That was one of mine.
Okay. And then my last one is life is to be enjoyed. Are you enjoying it? So that is so, because we go through life and we're just in the motions of everything. And it's like, but wait, stop a second. Are you having fun? Are you having fun? Because this is the life that you get. Are you enjoying it? And if you're not, make the shift so that you are finding joy.
I love that. It's amazing. Okay, guys, starting a new decade today.
All right, I just have one more little thing here. 1 second.
Okay. Happy birthday, Mama. I love you so much. Okay.
Oh my gosh. What? That's so cute.
How cute is that?
I die. What? I was like, wait, what is she about to play right now? I'm so red.
Oh, how cute.
Oh,
that was Winter, everyone.
It was
Winter's little gorgeous voice.
I can't. That makes me so teary. Oh my gosh.
Well,
so
we love
sweet.
you. We love you.
you.
And I'm so glad you were born. And you're one of the bestest friends in my entire life. And you're such an amazing person. And everyone listening loves you and appreciates you. And you're just so special. And we love you. And happy birthday.
Thank you. That makes me cry.
Oh, me too. I'm a bit teary.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
You guys, thanks for celebrating with me today. And we would love to hear all of your things in life that have that you've learned from your 40 for 40 or whatever you want to call it, but these little tidbits. So send them to us and we'll put them up on our stories, and so excited to hear everything that you guys have to share. Thanks, Daisies. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next week.
Woo!
Bye.
Bye.